So, welcome to Dating Relationships and Disability Groups. And we are so glad to have you here. I have already introduced you and told the audience about you, but in your own words, can you share with us who you are?
Absolutely can. And I'm giggling internally because I'd already talked to you about, oh my gosh, I have cats with poor boundaries. They're going to show up. And one already walked across and knocked my computer sideways. And I'm like, that's life.
That's okay. We love animals around here, so no worries.
Oh my gosh. My name is Dr. Kristen Williamson. I am a licensed professional counselor. I have my doctorate in behavioral health management. I didn't get diagnosed with autism until I was 39. I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD until I was 39. My husband did not get diagnosed with ADHD until he was 47. Um, I have a 15-year-old son who's autistic, ADHD. I mean, he's got as many diagnoses behind him as I have certifications behind my name. He just has a plethora. I have a 13-year-old daughter who finally got diagnosed with ADHD. We're trying to get a diagnosis of autism, but females, that diagnosis, it takes so much more because there's still that gross stigma of females can't be autistic, or like we can do all these normal things. We can make eye contact. We're not autistic. And so I am living that life of being a mom to neurospicy kids. I'm going to say neurospicy versus neurodivergent because I truly believe we have the spice of life, whether it's a good spice or not. I feel like we've got that spice there.
The neurospicy.
Neurospicy.
I love it. I'm gonna begin to adopt that.
I've also heard neurosparkly, which makes me really happy because I love glitter, but neurospicy just has stuck in my brain a lot more. Um,
Okay.
being married to someone who has a different presenting disability than I do, it's been an interesting way to meld our relationship. We are both second marriages, so we are coming into this after living quite a bit of life, but still we hadn't understood what our brains were prior to getting together. We were just madly in love and then realized that I have a very hard time with cognitive flexibility. My brain does not like to have multiple ideas at the same time. It tends to panic and shut down. His brain lives in that spontaneity of chaos.
Okay.
Whew.
And how do you deal with that difference?
A lot of times with miscommunication, and especially in the beginning, um, I I realized with my autism brain, if I am not actively thinking about how I'm going to say something, how I'm going to utilize the inflection in my voice, that I can come off kind of as robotic,
Mm.
and that can come across as kind of mean and uncaring. And he has had to come in and kind of rewrite that idea in his brain that I'm not uncaring when I sound like this.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm just collecting information. And I
Mm.
know this comes around with, why'd you put that spice there? Why'd you put the salt there? And for me, I'm just asking information because I want to know, why'd you put the spice there? Why is the salt there? My brain says it could be more efficient on another shelf.
Mm.
And for a long time, his brain heard that as, I'm doing something wrong. She's upset with me. She's mad at me. And then he would get upset and he would pout or just not talk about it because he was raised in a time where, men don't share their emotions. That's perceived as weak. And that's a whole different pathway of fussiness I would go down.
So, how do you handle, or what would you say for someone who is dating, who is neurospicy, and say their communication does come across as robotic,
Yep.
okay, and they're having a hard time just getting people to say, yes, I would love to go have coffee.
I have learned one of the best things you can do is learn about your brain, learn about how your brain works, how you come across, how you talk with people. And then once you know this about yourself, tell other people, advocate. When you are talking to people ahead of time, you let them know. I like to ask questions. I really want to learn about your brain. I might ask you 17 questions in a row, and that might feel like an interrogation. I'm not interrogating you. I'm just really interested. But if that feels like a lot, let me know.
Okay. And what would you say to someone? Because I have worked with various people enough to know what they're asking when they hear that. What would you say to someone who says, oh, if I say that up front, they're not going to have any interest in me?
One, I would say that sucks. That sucks. It's such a hard thing to hear. That's such a, it very much feels rejecting. And prior to finding my husband, who I knew a decade before we ever got together, I had the same kind of mentality. I had that same mindset of, I don't know that I'm ever going to find anyone who likes me for me, who knows me as authentically me. So I'm going to mask it. I'm going to hide it. I'm going to do the things that, quote unquote, I feel like I need to be doing to make others like me. And that is simply not true. That is absolutely not true. There are people who will like you for who you are. It is finding those people. And in order to find those people, you need to be upfront. Like, don't come in keeping yourself small. Don't come in hiding pieces of yourself, because then whenever those pieces come out, one, the person who you're talking to may then decide that they don't want to date you, but you've already put in so much time and effort and emotional vulnerability, it's going to hurt. I want to say a good chunk more. It's just, it hurts. It doesn't feel good. That rejection that comes out. Thank you, Kat, for knocking things over. It's very much choosing to be around the people and choosing people to be in your life who will accept you for who you are, and for having that hard conversation with yourself, with the idea of, this person would not like me if they knew, that I sound robotic, that I'm going to ask you 15 questions in a row, that I need direct communication, that I don't do well with sensory environments, like really high noises. Ooh, that hurts me so much. That hurts my insides. And so being with people that is the only way they can be, that's just not a person for me. And
What helped you with that mindset for yourself, for becoming more comfortable? And I use the term coming out disabled and saying, this is me, take it or leave it.
honestly, so I didn't get diagnosed until about 5 years after a therapist friend said to me, I'm pretty certain you're autistic. And let me tell you the shame cycle I went down with that, because autism is not a broken arm. It's not a bruise. It's not something you can see easily from the outside. So it's a lot of internal thoughts. And with the holistic society of, we need to be whatever, that was really hard. And so I had to do some therapy and some deep dives into myself and learning about what autism looked like well before I got diagnosed, because in America, getting diagnosed is not easy or cheap or
Mm,
something that everybody has the ability to do. So I am a huge proponent of even just that non-diagnosis, that undiagnosis, like getting as close as you can to a diagnosis without having to pay $1,500 for a doctor to do it. And then just being able to come in and say, you know what? I'm not broken. My brain works different.
mhm,
I'm not less. I don't have to be less. But I can tell you that I need to wear earplugs when I go out into groups of people because I have a hard time with this noise.
mhm,
And for me, kind of coming out autistic in that way before I was ever diagnosed, I almost became more autistic when I learned I might be autistic because I started learning about myself and I started learning that I don't like eating leftovers because the food texture tastes different.
mhm.
And I needed to tell that to my spouse who grew up in with a mom from who was born in the 1920s. So she was that mom that you eat everything on your plate because we don't waste food.
Mhm.
And so he has had to understand with me, I love the idea of leftovers, but the follow through is not there. And it's not shame filled anymore.
Right.
But it's working through that shame that immediately jumps into it.
For someone who has some doubt with rejection or have faced that social discrimination of ableism, what advice would you give them to help them rebuild their confidence?
One, I want to just make sure who's ever listening feels so seen and heard with this. That rejection sensitivity is such a powerful, like painful feeling. Um, Neurospicy brains, humans in general, but spicy brains might deal with something called rejection sensitivity, uh, RSD, rejection sensitivity disorder, dysphoria.
Or, yeah.
Uh-huh. And it is a very real thing. It shows up and just that it painful sometimes. Um, Living that life of what's wrong with you? You're so lazy, you're so this, you're so weird, you're too much, you're not enough. Like all of those things from birth that it's 1,000 micro cuts across your psyche. And so when someone else says, "Oh, you're too much," or you're getting ghosted by someone, it just we might then start avoiding situations in which you might feel rejected. That okay, well, people aren't going to accept me, so I'm just not going to put myself out there. I would say some of the small things you can do, and it very much, there's not going to be one big thing. There's not going to be one big step you can take. It's going to be 100 tiny steps. It's going to be finding places where you fit in a little bit more. For my autism world, I will tell so many of my people that making friends online is just as important and valid as having friends in person. Meeting someone online, provided you take the appropriate safety mechanisms and precautions, because with online, that can always be risky. But there's Discord channels that are for people on the spectrum. There are Reddit threads. There are just these communities, these glorious communities, the convention community of the Comic Cons, the anime cons, the different things where you can dress up and be Your favorite comic book character, and you're surrounded with a room full of people who are doing the exact same thing. Like, it's just finding places where you feel seen and connected, and choosing to show up in those places a little bit more than in the places where you may feel that immediate rejection, that immediate shutdown. I know for me, going on a stage with beauty queens, with ladies who are a size 0 and tanned and they've worked out and they look great, I feel like a giraffe in heels and I'm gonna clunk around, and it is not, that hits every level of self-esteem ick for me. And that's not my place, but I can go to a comic book convention. I can go dress up as Papa Smurf and feel completely at ease and not judged.
What would you say for people who get the concept of going to where their people are, but they don't know where their people are?
Ooh, that's a good question. That I could see this in two different checks. One, they like the idea of going to where their people are, but they don't necessarily know. I would say this is where we could come in and we could do research. We could look it up. We could get online and say, what are some things near me? Where are some ADHD meetup groups, some autism meetup groups? I found solace in a parenting autism group when my kid was 8 and started therapy. That was one of the only places I ever felt accepted as a mom, because that whole holistic society of my kids having a meltdown on the ground in the grocery store and then just getting judged for, or believing that I'm being judged, because I may not be totally judged. I'm judged by some, but you're not being enough of a mom. Your kid's just doing this. You're doing this. You're doing this. Being in that room with other moms whose kids are on the floor rolling around, making clicking noises on their tablets, doing everything, I did not feel like anyone was judging me because my kid was acting in a different way. Every mom there was like, yep, here's our kids. And so it was, and this is where I'm so passionate about finding your people, finding your tribe, because I had never known a level of acceptance as I did in that waiting room with the other parents, with their kids. I had not felt this before. And then after feeling that, it felt like drugs. I was like, I want more. I want to feel this again. And as an adult, it's realizing that not every person is going to be my friend, but I can be friendly to everybody. Not everybody is going to understand my brain. A lot of times people look at me and they place me in a box that is comfortable for them. But that doesn't mean I have to stay in that box.
Right.
That means I'm going to add glitter to that box. I'm going to cut holes in it. I'm going to put things on the wall. But in hearing me now and talking about this, I have done a lot of work to get to this point, to get past that shame mentality. Because for a long time, it was what's wrong with me? Why am I so weird? I'm too much or not enough.
Right. And on that note, and talking about dating strategies, a lot of people are trying to do dating apps, and they're not always the most inclusive, friendly environment. But what is a strategy or two that you would recommend for how someone should talk about themselves in a dating profile?
Oh, if you don't want to put what you've been diagnosed with, okay. I will say some things you can put there. Like if I was going to put myself on a dating profile, I would say I prefer direct communication. I don't always get subtext because I don't. I will, it goes right over my head. I prefer texting versus the telephone. And just because for me, texting, I can respond at my own time. I can do
Right.
things slower. I can process things different. And so it's putting that out there. It might not be diagnosed autistic, but I might put out there, I like to ask a lot of questions.
Mhm.
I love hanging out with animals because animals definitely make me feel calmer than being in a group of humans. I prefer small group things versus big concerts.
So not really sharing your diagnosis if you don't feel like it, but maybe sharing some characteristics.
Yeah. Some
Yeah, I
characteristics
like
that
that
are
idea.
important for you to let other people know.
Mhm.
And I think in getting to know people, you can even share more. But if you are not comfortable putting whatever diagnosis you have out there, don't put it out there. It's literally no one's business but yours. But
Right.
if there are characteristics that you want people to know, because it's otherwise, might be harder in finding someone, okay. I've also seen people do this. I have a really high intense job. I'm not able to respond a lot. I am allergic to cats. I don't like dinosaurs. People put all
Right.
kinds of things out there, and there's not a right or wrong. But if you put out there on a dating app that, I prefer to text, and then someone wants to call you all the time, that might not be your person.
That might be a sign. Yeah.
Right? Like you're immediately putting it on there and they're not even hearing you for where you're at. If they're not meeting you where you're at in this moment when we are supposed to be on our best behavior, chances are they're not going to meet you where you're at down the road when they're not on their best behavior.
Right. Right. Listen, and I could keep talking to you, asking you questions, but unfortunately, we don't have the time today. But I would love to hear what is the most important message you feel you have to listeners out there who are neurospicy and they're looking for that loving, meaningful relationship.
Yes. I want the whole world to know, and I had to learn this myself. It is not your job to make yourself smaller in order to make anybody else fit in.
Mhm.
It's not on you to dim your light. You can shine just as bright as everybody else. You are allowed to. That is okay. And I don't think enough people know that.
And when you do that, you draw your people to you.
You draw your people. We bring the moths to a flame, so to speak.
It's been wonderful having you share your wisdom with us, Kristen. Where could people most easily get in touch with you if they want to?
I am on all kinds of social media. I will send you my link tree after
Mhm.
this. If you on LinkedIn or LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok are some of the three I use quite a bit. Dr. Kristen Williamson. You will find me. I am this blonde woman with dyed hair, probably with cats in videos.
And if you go to YouTube, we'll hopefully have a cat appear in the video.
A couple cats. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. We so appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much. I hope you'll have a wonderful day.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording.
Oh, that was so much fun.
I'm really sorry we haven't the time today, Kristen, because that was one